Good morning everybody and good morning kids. It's great to be doing the next story in our series. Remember, we are doing a 10-week series to learn the story of the whole Bible. So we're doing a story each week and using our banner to help us. So let's recap what we've done so far. I'm just going to go out of the picture and I think you can probably see all the banner behind me. So the first week you can see here Adam and Eve. So God made the whole world. He made his people, Adam and Eve, and they lived happily in his perfect garden under God's rule. Adam and Eve then disobeyed God. They didn't want him as their king. This ruined everything and they were thrown out of the garden and everyone was sad. Later on, God made 3 promises to Abraham. 1, 2, 3. That Abraham was going to become the father of a great nation. He was going to give them a special land and he was going to bless the whole world through Abraham's family. God kept his promises to Abraham through David. David became the king of God's people in the land that he had promised them. Everything was great, at least for a while. So we're going to learn today what happens next. But first of all, have a think about some rules that you have. Maybe at home or at school. At school you might have a rule that you can't run in the corridors or talk when the teacher is talking. When you go to the beach sometimes there's the special flags, aren't there, that tell you where you can and you can't swim. I'm sure you have rules at home too. We have a rule that if we go out on our bikes, we have to wear a helmet. So all these rules are there to help keep us safe and to keep us happy. In the Bible, God gave people 10 rules for living in his land. There were rules like don't kill each other and don't steal. But the first rule that God gave was the most important. He said, "You shall have no other gods before me." That's a strange rule, isn't it? I wonder what it means. Well, it's kind of like saying that something is more important than God. Now, we all have things that we love. We might have our favourite teddy bear. We might have a favourite person, a favourite sport, a pet, or toys that we love. And these are all wonderful things that have been given to us by God, but they are not as wonderful as God. Now, in the Bible, these things are often called idols. People would have pretend gods that would be carved out of wood or stone or gold, and they would pray to these idols. Imagine that. So they might have looked a little bit like this one. Okay, so if we go back to King David. Remember, David was a shepherd and he became a great king. So this is a picture that we had last week. David, a shepherd boy, becoming a king. And he was a brilliant king. But David got old and he died. And his son was called Solomon. And Solomon became the next king. At the beginning of Solomon's reign, life was good. He experienced God's blessing and he obeyed God. God made him very wise. He built a magnificent temple, a little bit like that one. He built a magnificent temple where people could go and they could worship God. And he was so famous that other kings and queens came to visit him and listen to him. It looks like he loved God with all his heart. Now, hopefully you will have cut one of these out and have one at home. Doesn't matter how big it is, but it's a whole heart. David loved God with all his heart, and it seemed at this point that Solomon did too. But then Solomon started to make a big mistake. God had said that a man should only one wife, especially the king. But unfortunately, Solomon didn't listen to that. Now, he didn't have one wife. He didn't have 2 wives. He didn't have 5 wives. Didn't have 10 wives, or 50 wives, or 100 wives. No, he chose, wait for it, to have 700 wives and 300 girlfriends. Yep, that's what it says in the Bible. Check it out for yourself. Now, here's a funny picture to show Solomon with some of his wives. Okay, so that was a bit of a problem. But not only that, but these wives came from other countries, and those wives didn't love God. They worshipped other pretend gods. Some of Solomon's heart went to these women. So I want you to rip some of your heart away now. Now, sadly, Solomon didn't just love the women. He also started to love their gods too. He joined in with the parties, he built statues and worshipped them, and he even built special buildings so that other people could join in too. Another part of his heart was taken away. Oh dear, there doesn't seem to be much left. He no longer gave his whole heart to God. Much of it was taken away with his wives and with loving other gods. There wasn't a lot left for God. I wonder how God felt about all of this. Adam and Eve disobeyed God by breaking the one rule that God had given them. Solomon broke the rules too and disobeyed God. I expect God was sad. I expect God might have been angry too, though. Can you remember what happened to Adam and Eve when they disobeyed God? They were sent out of the garden. What do you think will happen to Solomon and the people of Israel? Well, sadly there was going to be trouble, and it isn't dissimilar to what happened to Adam and Eve. Next week we'll see exactly what happens and how that story unfolds. Now, we do things wrong too. We don't always do what God says, and we love things around us more than we love God. God will always forgive us though if we are sorry and we turn our hearts back to God. God deserves our whole hearts because he is wonderful. It says in the Bible that we should love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. So we're going to sing a song about that, but let's just have a quick look at the banner for this week, if I can extract it from here. So hopefully you can see this. So here we go, we've got Solomon looking very solemn, and we've got his crown, because basically he decided that he didn't want God in charge, he was going to be in charge. So that's our pictures for this week to help us remember what happened in our story. Okay, so we're going to sing our song now, and the song is Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the actions are very simple. It's love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And see how many different ways you can do strength. And we will do the next part of the story next week. And I look forward to that. And so I hope you have a good week. Look after yourselves. Take care. And see you next week. Bye.